we are having a knowledgeable person. Her name is Nyla Hill from AAA Insurance, and we will be covering renter's insurance. Not many people are talking about this. Not many people even know that you need one. I think it's an important subject to cover. And Nyla today will explain to us what actually is the renter's insurance and why every renter and homeowner should ask for it. So, Nyla, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, when did you start working for the insurance? And then we will proceed to the renter's insurance.
Sure. Hey, thanks for having me on here, Honorata. I do work for AAA Insurance, and I've been with them for about 2 years now. Prior to that, I was with Farmers Insurance. And prior to that, I worked for AAA for about 7 years in customer service. So customer service has kind of always been my area, and I find that insurance implements that very well.
Yes, serving people, absolutely.
Yes.
So tell us, please, what actually the renter's insurance is, because I don't think many people know or care what it is and why we should have it.
Well, actually, the insurance commissioner for Oklahoma makes the statement that only 31% of renters have a renter's policy. That's pretty low.
It is pretty low. Yes, I agree.
It is a separate policy other than a homeowner's. So if you're not the homeowner and you're living in that home or that apartment or that condo and you don't own it, you need a renter's policy.
Tell me, please, what actually the renter's insurance cover? I mean, because when we think about the insurance, homeowners insurance, we think about the, broad spectrum of coverage, like your dwellings, your home, your surroundings. But renter's insurance probably don't cover all the,
That's right. That's right. Renter's insurance is more comprehensive. It basically covers 3 things. And you can add additional coverage on some areas, but the 3 main areas is it's going to cover your contents, your liability, and your additional living expenses. And we could talk about each one of those if you'd like.
Oh, I'd love to hear about this. Yes, yes. So let's start with your belongings, with your personal property. What exactly the insurance covers? Does it cover my furniture?
So your personal property is also referred to as contents. I also refer to it as your stuff. That is your furniture, your clothes, your electronics, your pictures on the wall, your cookware, your books, your bedding, everything. When I'm talking to a homeowner, and I can do this as well with a renter, if you turn your apartment or your home or your condo upside down, everything that would fall out is your personal property.
Okay.
That is your contents. So your belongings, your contents, your personal property, that is what's covered against damage and loss on a renter's policy.
So what would happen for the insurance to cover the losses? The first thing it's coming to my mind is fire, but what other causes? Probably
fire is a big one. Fire is a big one. Theft is a big one. In talking about fire, it could just be smoke damage. It could be a windstorm. We have those here in Oklahoma.
Yes, we do.
It could be a water loss if you do have that coverage on your policy. Be an explosion. Essentially anything other than an earthquake or a flood. Those are separate policies.
Okay, so yeah. So for it,
Yeah. So for instance, if you have a nice leather sofa in your living room and your upstairs neighbor has their bathtub floods and it comes through the walls and um, somehow destroys your leather sofa, you've got a claim, depending on your deductibles, of course. But yeah, absolutely. And like you said, fire and theft are the big ones. And then as far as your own property contents being at a loss.
Okay, so let's go to liability. What does it mean?
Liability, in its simplest term, is any loss or property damage that's your fault.
Well, when you were talking about the tub, I was thinking about, like, somebody may start the bath and then get distracted or start watching, the Facebook
And
or
that happens.
TikToks, and or
That
chasing
does
kids,
happen.
and
Yes,
then overflowing
absolutely.
with water, and then your neighbor
Absolutely.
underneath you is wet. So
Yes. And that neighbor is likely to sue you for damages. So that's where you want to have good liability coverage on your renter's policy. We generally put 300,000 on a liability coverage. You can do 500,000 or higher, but 300,000 is kind of a middle of the road.
Okay. So what else does it cover? Because, I was just like thinking about this water thing, but let's
I mean,
say,
you're in the kitchen and you start a grease fire.
okay.
That fire started in your apartment. It spread to your neighbor and your neighbor and your neighbor, but it's your fault. So you want good liability coverage.
How about if I will have a guest over and the guest will, let's say, fell from the sofa and break the wrist? Is my
Yes.
liability insurance will help to cover the costs of, let's say, medical?
Yes. Yes, but also on a renter's policy, you can carry medical coverage, and that is for someone else's medical. It's not for your own, but it would be for like those trip and falls or medical incidences where you can help. You could say, "Hey, I've got $5,000 on my policy that will help you with your medical expense." Then depending on who they are and how they want to pursue it, it may go into your liability coverage.
Okay.
But yeah, there's 1,000 examples. One of your kids knocks over a candle. You guys go to bed. You start smelling the smoke. Super Bowl party. Hey,
Yeah.
that's coming up in November, right? Right?
Yes. So you better start thinking about the coverage.
That is right. Get that renter's insurance because you're going to have friends over. You're going to all be sitting around in your living room. There's several examples here from a Super Bowl party, but let's say you've got food out all over the kitchen counter. There's cheese, there's this, there's that, there's shrimp, if that food sits out for hours and someone gets food poisoning and they want to blame you for it, they have every right to.
I didn't even think about that.
If you're sitting around drinking with your buddies and someone leaves the party and is intoxicated, that can come back on you as a liability expense.
Wow.
If your best buddy gets real excited on a play and a football's being tossed around in your living room and it hits the 60-inch big screen TV, he's going to need to pay for that. That's not going to be covered on your renter's insurance.
How about if I will throw the ball?
I'm not going to get too deep into claims, but yes, anytime you have a policy, including a renter's policy, you do have the right to file a claim for loss or damage. Um, and it's all susceptible to the coverage on the policy and the deductibles.
Okay, so let's say that I got the grease fire in my house, and the house is all in smoke and it stinks, and I am unable to stay in my place. Will the coverage cover, let's say, my hotel stay for time being?
So the way that works, it is considered additional living expense that would be on your policy. And the way that works is if you normally pay $1,000 rent, which nobody pays $1,000 rent anymore, but let's just say $1,000 rent, and you have to go live in a hotel, and that's going to cost you $1,500 for the month. So your coverage would be for the additional $500.
Okay.
I wanted to also mention that since we're talking about things that can happen with you as the renter, a lot of people have the misconception that some of these things will be taken care of by the landlord, the person that owns the property. And that's a misconception. A landlord has their own policy. They have the landlord policy. You have to have the renter's policy to cover these things that come back on you.
Will it require extra policy if I am an owner of, let's say, expensive jewelry, or let's say, I don't know, some comics books which are from centuries ago?
Yeah. Absolutely. There is additional coverage that you can carry as an endorsement on the policy to cover things like expensive jewelry, collections, that sort of thing.
So it's not, it will not go under the regular coverage, right? Because it will require more money, I guess.
It kind of depends on what it is. When we're talking about a renter's policy, we're talking about property coverage, personal property coverage, usually between $15,000 and $100,000. That's usually the range. And as I said, that's all your stuff. So it's a great idea to have some sort of inventory of what you have, because if that fire comes through your apartment or your home, it's devastating, and it's often so traumatic you can't remember all the stuff that you had. I mean, even me as a homeowner, it would be overwhelming to think about all the stuff I have in my home. So a home inventory where you've written down things, and if it's a collection or expensive things, you should have like a serial number. You can also just take pictures or do a walkthrough video.
So this will be included in my renter's insurance, or I will have to get like separate addendum to it?
For the collections or the expensive pieces,
which is more valuable.
Yeah, I would say talk to the insurance agent about doing an
Talk to
endorsement
you.
for talk to me about adding that additional coverage.
Okay.
Yes.
How about I have a pet who doesn't like kids and let's say bites kids. What then?
Yeah.
Is the homeowner's insurance covers the pet behaviors?
The renter's policy that will fall under liability, because if your pet bites a neighbor or someone walking by or someone visiting your home, that is a liability issue. And like a homeowner's policy, when we write a renter's policy, we want to know what kind of dog you have, or
Which pet,
exotic
right?
or exotic animal. It's not always just a dog.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a snake or whatever you have. We as the agent need to know that up front.
Okay. Does it have to happen in the place or it can happen on the premises?
On the property.
On the property. Okay.
Yeah. Because you as the renter, you're renting that property.
Let me ask you then, what are the things that the renter's insurance does not cover?
There's always exclusions on a insurance policy, no matter what kind it is.
You mentioned already flood damage, right? And earthquake.
Yeah, for the renter, there's flood damage and earthquake damage. Those are two separate policies that if you feel like you need those, you need to carry those as well. And personally, I tell people, if you can't sleep at night knowing you don't have earthquake coverage, then get an earthquake policy.
Are they popular in Oklahoma?
A flood policy or earthquake?
Renters
Earthquake.
at all, just like
Usually, if we can get an auto and a renter's policy together and apply those multi-policy discounts, that's typically all that the renter is interested in.
But for the
Because
like I'm sagging away from the main course.
we're going to have another class.
No, but like from the top of your head, are they popular? Because I know that it was time that we heard about the earthquakes in Oklahoma,
Right, and everybody jumped on board.
Yes.
And
I don't think they really have any. I mean, they're not
well, at the time, a lot of insurance carriers mainstream would endorse the homeowner's policy with earthquake coverage.
Okay.
A lot of them have backed off of that now, and so it's a specialty policy that you get through a specialty company.
Because I know, like California, they have it and it's expensive, blah blah blah. But I didn't know how Oklahoma is right now covering it.
Right.
Okay, go back to the renter's insurance.
It's easy to get off track when you're talking about insurance.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's
multifaceted.
It is.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. You have replacement coverage, and what was the other one? I don't remember. What's the?
It's called actual cash. It's called actual cash value.
Okay.
And that coverage, you have depreciation for your property. So there's replacement cost or RCV, and then you have actual cash value or ACV. For an example, the sofa in your living room, let's say it is a 1989 sofa. Okay? It's been around a while. So if you have a fire and that sofa is destroyed and you file the claim, if you have replacement cost value coverage, you're not going to get a Goodwill 1989 sofa. You're not going to be paid for what that sofa would cost today, which would be about $25. you're going to be paid for what it would cost to buy a new sofa today if you have replacement cost coverage.
Okay.
So that's the difference, actual cash value or replacement cost.
Okay.
Now, it's going to cost more for you to carry replacement cost coverage on your policy,
Yes, because
but
it's
in the
like,
event of a claim, you'll be happier.
yes, definitely, definitely.
And that's why you have insurance. You have insurance for peace of mind and to get you through the claims process, should that ever happen to you. And, you know, insurance, I say, is kind of a necessary evil.
It
We
is.
hate paying for it. It's expensive in Oklahoma. But golly, if you need it, you need it. And
Yeah.
it's sure good to have then.
Yes, and also I believe it's good to have a relationship with the agent like yourself to explain what is really, important, because sometimes you may pay for things you don't really need. So knowing exactly what should be in your policy, understanding
Yes.
your policy, it's super important, I
Yeah.
think, because
That's
sometimes,
important to me. That's important to me for my clients to understand what they have, what they're paying for, and to provide value to that. Because if they're just seeing the bottom line, golly, I don't want to pay that much. Well, here's why you're paying that much. And
exactly.
I do that every day, Honorata. I sit here and I talk to people every day that have no idea what their coverages are, and it makes me happy to be able to provide that service.
And I am grateful for it. I'm sorry for the interruption earlier, because I was trying to see if we have any questions on Facebook, since we are streaming to the Facebook. So it just opened with the
Oh,
noise.
great. Okay.
But I don't see any questions. So I think we cover a lot of things today. Is it anything you would like to add?
Um, sure. I mean, renters insurance, like I said, it's going to provide you peace of mind. It's going to provide you coverage for your personal property, your liability, and should there be additional living expenses. Um, it sounds like it's a big deal in cost. It's not. It's fairly cheap, honestly. Um, car insurance and homeowners insurance, those are kind of expensive here in Oklahoma.
That's true.
Renters insurance, we've been able to keep it at a moderate price. For instance, I wrote a policy yesterday for a gentleman who rents a home, and it was $181 for the year. For the
Wow.
year, that's about $15 a month to have that kind of coverage. To
Well,
have
to have a peace of mind.
Yeah, for to have $50,000 on your personal property, $300,000 of liability coverage, some medical. Yeah. So on average, I would say the price of a renter's policy is going to run you between $15, $20 a month, maybe up to 35 or 40. But like I said, that's value for what
It
you get.
is value, and and knowing that, I mean, you will have this peace of mind, and you don't have to really, sweat over it and think what will happen if.
Right,
So
right.
I think it's priceless. I mean,
Yeah.
$15 to even $40, it's a month. It's not that much.
I would love to help anyone that is interested or just has questions. I'm available and would love to help.
Absolutely. Could you tell us how people can reach out to you? Maybe the email or phone number? What would
Sure.
you like to
Yeah.
share?
You can call me directly on my work number. It rings right at my desk. It's 405-717-8254. Or you can reach me by email, and that is nhill at AAA ok.org.
Thank you so much, Nyla. It was a pleasure
you.
talking to you, and
Thank
we
you.
gained so much knowledge today.
Well, if you have follow-up questions, reach out, please.
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.